Well, good morning, and thank you for joining us again. If you were here earlier, the Board of County Commission meeting on November 15th. Thank you for joining us this morning. If we could have Major Gargas lead us with an invocation following the Pledge of Allegiance. Major, good morning. Thank you again for your service this morning.
Let us pray. Almighty and ever-loving Father, once again this day we gather together to ask you for your blessings and assistance as we reflect on this day of new beginnings for our elected representatives and for the people of Lee County. Inspiring all of us together with our community leaders the gift of solidarity as we recover and rebuild. Most importantly, give us the inspiration and the wisdom to work together, each with their own gifts and talents, for an even better community that offers opportunities for all its citizens. Inspire all who are in public service to lead and serve in a spirit of humility, compassion, and understanding. Let us remember and not forget the most vulnerable in our midst, especially those who have had their lives affected in so many ways by Hurricane Ian. Let us honor those who have lost their lives and console those who mourn, and give us, your people, the discernment to learn personal lessons from these challenging times. In these days, Lord, as we turn to prepare for celebrating the season of light in the weeks ahead, we pray for relief for those who need help and for us, instruments of your peace. We ask all these things with humble and grateful hearts. Amen and amen.
Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. We have another little ceremony this morning. I just want to recognize earlier when I was rushing through, I wanted Commissioner Hammond to have more time in the microphone this morning. So I just want to recognize all the staff that put together a beautiful reception downstairs. Roger, if you could pass on the good word on Pam is in the room, and all their staff for making a great reception downstairs this morning. It was great. So thank you to Betsy and Pam, Peter, and all the staff that put that together. So thank you again for all their work. And also to our assistants. I didn't mention our assistants this morning. All 5 of us, our assistants, keep the county running for our offices, and they do amazing work. So thank you again for all the assistants. At this time, we'll be calling the clerk of courts up. Kevin Carnes is here this morning to recognize the board we have to do the reorganization of the Board of County Commissioners. I have our little crown here. I'll be passing on after the last year. So board, thank you for your leadership this year, working with me and everything as the board, and we've done some amazing things. Look forward to another amazing year. So,
Mr. Chairman, thank you for all you did this year to lead us through it all.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Kevin Carnes. I'm the county's Clerk of Court and Comptroller. It's an honor to join you today for your reorganizational meeting. My purpose today is to serve as your ex officio member to the board, where we will facilitate a vote for your next chairman. Please remember that nominations do not require a second. After all nominations are made, we will take a voice vote for the election, starting with District 1. Commissioners, the floor is now open for nominations.
Commissioner Sendelli.
Mr. Clerk, Kevin, whatever is appropriate, if you will permit me a moment before we proceed. It has truly been an honor to serve as the Vice Chair of the Board of County Commissioners. The last 2 years or so have challenged all of us to think and to act differently. Our world and community continues to change. Hurricane Ian was the last to affect us both personally and professionally, and caused all of us to reflect on where we can do the most good. I believe my professional background would best allow me to engage in part on the road ahead with John Talmadge and our economic development team, and as a Horizon Council liaison for all of Lee County. In addition, I would like to certainly continue my efforts to further support my district, which includes the devastation of Fort Myers Beach, as we focus on the rebuild. So as such, I would like to nominate Brian Hammond as chair, as he's the next in the normal rotation of leadership.
Are there any other nominations? Nominations are now closed. We will now have a voice vote for Commissioner Brian Hammond to serve as your next chairman. Please signify by saying aye or nay. Commissioner Wayne.
Aye.
Commissioner Sandelli.
Aye.
Commissioner Pendergrass.
Aye.
Commissioner Hammond.
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Greenwell.
Aye.
Congratulations, Mr. Chair. The meeting is now yours for the...
I'll never have to do it again like that.
The real reason is he was going to make me wear this crown. I can't mess up my hair. So.
Thanks, Commissioner.
There you go.
All right.
That was yours. I moved it.
There you go. Well, thank you very much. And I want to thank our clerk, too, very much for helping to facilitate that. He always does a great job. It's always a pleasure to have the clerk here and as part of our ceremony every year. Commissioners, first I want to say, Commissioner Sandelli, thank you. I'm truly humbled by the confidence you put in me, and thank you very much. We won't let you down. And to the rest of you, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to be chairman. We're going to have a busy year, a great year, but we are going to rebuild Lee County together, as I said earlier. So let's get to business. Our first order of business will be to pick the vice chairman. So at this time, I'd like to open the floor for nominations of our vice chairman.
I'll nominate Mike Greenwell, please.
Okay, so nomination from Commissioner Ruane of Mike Greenwell. Do we have any other nominations? All right, seeing none, nominations are closed. At this time, I will do a roll call vote for this. Okay, Commissioner Ruane?
Aye.
Commissioner Sandelli?
Aye.
Commissioner Pendergrass?
Aye.
And Commissioner Greenwell?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. It passes unanimously. Congratulations, Vice Chairman. Very good. Congratulations. Anything you'd like to say? Mr.
As I said this morning, it's going to be very tough following behind Brian Hammond. He's a great speaker and going to do a great job, so thank you for trusting in me. Thank you.
Oh, you don't know what we're going to do the next year.
Well, at this time, I'd like to recognize our immediate past chairman for National Injury Prevention Day and a ceremonial proclamation, Commissioner Pendergrass.
Great, thank you. If I could have the staff from Lee Health come forward. We have Tracy, Maria, Katie's here, Sally, if you all could come forward to the podium here. And just stay here by the podium. I'm going to read the resolution and the record, then afterwards we'll come up for a picture. You can go to the podium then. Thank you. Thank you again for being here this morning. The Board of County Commissioners resolution reads, whereas National Injury Prevention Day will be observed November 18, 2022. The annual designation raises awareness about the significance of injuries and advocates for injury awareness prevention in Southwest Florida. And whereas Southwest Florida is vested in preventing injuries and violence as the leading cause of death and disability for people ages 1 to 44 years of age. And whereas Southwest Florida is working to establish a safe and injury-free environment in and around Southwest Florida, and as trauma injuries recently contributed over 5,500 hospital visits in Lee County alone from 2021 through the year 2022. And whereas hospitals, state agencies, community organizations are committed to crucial role of reducing injuries and death by promoting safe practices. Now, whereas that National Injury Prevention Day raises awareness, promote efforts preventing injuries among all age groups, Lee County, Lee Health Trauma Services, and Golisano Children's Hospital, in collaboration with law enforcement agencies, local fire departments, emergency medical services, and many other agencies and businesses throughout Lee County and beyond, will work in an effort to protect and help prevent residents and visitors from injuries. Now, therefore, be resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Lee County, Florida, does hereby proclaim November 18, 2022 as National Injury Prevention Day. Signed by myself. My last I get to sign this year. Thank you.
Congratulations.
I think the sheriff was in the room too before. We shot him come up here. I don't know if he's still here or not. Okay. Thank you. And who would like to speak? I think doctors want to speak.
I just want to thank everybody, obviously, for promoting this day. It's very important to all of us at Lee Health. This is our mission and our goal. We want to prevent injury. That's the main goal. So thank you to everybody, and then also to like all of our coalition partners, like the fire department, EMS, sheriff's office. Please, I mean, all of them. They're all there with us. Like we are a team. We are a community, and we work together to make this happen. So thank you.
Thank you for being part of this. What makes our community so great. Michael?
Commissioner, I just want to say thanks to you for your service on the Regional Advisory Committee on Trauma and the County Commissions Partnership. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate that. All right, at this time, we'll move to the recap. I see no items on the recap that require a motion. I would like to announce that under walk-ons and carryovers, we will be asked to approve an amended Waterway Estates lease and emergency use resolution. Very good. Any other business under the recap, Mr. County Manager?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Seeing none, we'll move to the consent agenda. Commissioner Greenwell, do you have anything you'd like to pull for discussion?
I do not.
Commissioner Pendergrass?
No.
I have nothing I'd like to pull. Commissioner Sandelli? Commissioner?
Do not.
Okay, seeing no items to pull, does anybody wish to make a
Move the
motion?
balance.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Pendergrass to approve the balance of the consent agenda and a second from Commissioner Ruane. Do we have any further discussion on that before I take public comment? Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask for public comment on any items that are on today's consent agenda. Did anybody come to speak on any of those items? Okay, seeing none, I'll close public comment. Any further discussion, commissioners? Are there any objections? Seeing no objections, that motion carries unanimously. At this time, we'll move to the administrative agenda, and I'd like to ask our county manager to introduce the first item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Defer to the county attorney for the first administrative item on the agenda.
Yes, sir, Mr. County Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations. Your first item is one that you will grow tired of seeing, but we have to place on the agenda each meeting, and that is to confirm and ratify the extension of the local state of emergency. And with your new chairmanship, you'll be seeing my smiling face every Monday morning for execution, followed by presentation at your board meeting. So we would respectfully request approval and ratification of agenda item, administrative item number 1.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. County Attorney. Commissioners, any questions for our county attorney on this item? Does anybody come to speak in public comment on the state of local emergency administrative agenda item number 1? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Do we have a motion?
I'll move the item.
Motion for approval from Commissioner Ruane, and a second is from Commissioner Sandelli. Do we have any further discussion on this? All right, seeing none, I'll call the question. Are there any objections? Seeing none, that motion carries unanimously. Item number 2, you are recognized, Mr. County Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are asking you to approve the bank selection for Hurricane Ian Recovery and Mitigation Line of Credit Funding. Mr. Winton, please present the item.
Commissioners, this is to approve a selection of Bank of America for a $150 million revolving line of credit to help pay, basically for cash flow purposes. So we have Hurricane Ian expenses, recovery expenses, mitigation expenses, and then we have to pay those up front, and then we'll be reimbursed by federal and state agencies. So this line of credit will help with our cash flow needs over the next several years in order to do that. It is, with Bank of America, it is, like I said, a revolving so that you can pay off, take out more, pay off, take out more. And it will be, it is variable rate, it's a variable daily rate, the secured overnight financing rate, which is at one of the major national rates for borrowing cash, which is collateralized by U.S. Treasury securities.
Very good. Commissioners, do you have any questions for our administration?
I do.
Commissioner Ruane, you're recognized.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. Pete, just a couple of questions. What term do we pay this back over?
We are looking at a 3-year term, Commissioner.
Okay. And then secondarily, as you draw down on the amount, do you envision a recap at some point in time as you exhaust the funds, given the county commissioners, some type of breakdown on what you've drawn and how much?
Yes. Yeah, we will keep the board apprised over the next several months of all our cash inflows and outflows related to Hurricane Ian.
And I gather sometime in the future, you'll understand the disruption in our revenue flows as well?
Yes.
You'll give us that as well?
Yes.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner, any further questions? All right, seeing no further questions, has anyone come to speak in public comment on administrative agenda item number 2, the line of credit related to Hurricane Ian recovery? All right, seeing none, I'll close public comment. Commissioners, any further discussion? Does somebody wish to make a motion? Motion for approval from Commissioner Ruane, second from Commissioner Sandelli. Any further discussion then? Seeing no further discussion, are there any objections to the motion? Seeing none, that motion carries unanimously. Mr. Desjardins, you're recognized for item number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'll ask Mr. Salyer to present for your consideration today your 2023 state legislative agenda. Mr. Salyer?
Thank you, Commissioners. The draft priorities in front of you are centered largely around Hurricane Ian recovery, asking the state, for instance, to work with local governments to support our provision of essential services as we work through what the revenue impacts of this storm will be for us, asking the state to give us flexibility in grant terms where they can so that we can leverage funding against other sources of federal monies, asking perhaps even for special designation that would allow the county to qualify and get a competitive advantage in attaining some of those grants. So a number of broad-based policy questions for our local legislative delegation. On top of that, of course, we're asking for a number of projects to be appropriated. Again, many of them storm-related, rebuilding of bridges south of Fort Myers Beach, some septic conversion projects that, of course, are affected in when you have flood inundation circumstances. We're asking for help with the medical examiner and natural resources laboratory, both of which were impacted by the storm and both of whose services were called on for immediate post-hurricane impact recovery efforts. And there's a number of other projects that we can talk about if you like.
Very good. Any questions for our administration at this time?
More of a discussion point.
Yes?
You know, obviously, we're in a very fluid situation these days with everything evolving. I recognize this is a draft. I recognize it's a couple of weeks before we go to the local delegation. I just want to have some flexibility, if that's possible, if we need to amend and or enhance this before the delegation. I just think that's wise as we are in this fluid situation, constantly changing. Is that possible?
Any further comments? Commissioner Pendergrass.
I want to bring up something else, another topic about, and that's obviously going to probably relate to what I'm going to bring up here. I recently met with some Pine Island residents and the greater Pine Island water department out there, and actually they may have some speakers here who want to speak on this morning. They're asking us to help lobby the state not to come forward with any state changes this year, supporting annexations of cities into annexation areas like Pine Island and Matlacha. Something we were talking about before the hurricane, and it's obviously still on the radar with the fire departments and all the different districts, and also with the water utilities about having to make sure the state does not support any type of future annexations like that. So you may have some speakers on that today regarding that. So that's something I want to add to the delegation. Legislation is not supporting any type of cities initiatives that would help them annex properties as unincorporated. Legislative agenda forward with that amended motion with the flexibility for due to the time and also for things changes, and also to how the state not support any type of annexation, future changes from the cities within the county.
So, and do we have a second for that?
I'll second it.
Second from Commissioner Greenwell. And so the motion is to approve the legislative agenda as presented with the recognition that we will need to amend it as necessary as the situation changes in relation to the hurricane recovery, and also the addition that we would add a policy opposing the legislative annexation of land, unincorporated land into city boundaries through.
In special districts.
And special districts. Okay, very good. All right, so that is the motion that's on the floor. It's been seconded by Commissioner Greenwell. Does anybody wish to speak in public comment today? I have one from Jenna Bezeko-Forrester.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Jenna Bezako-Forrester on behalf of the Greater Pine Island Water Association. We'd want to thank you for including your opposition to annexation by special act in your priorities. This is an important issue, not just for Pine Island and Matlacha communities, but also a public policy issue for Lee County. We look forward to working with you and our legislators to ensure that this does not happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Has anyone else come to speak in public comment on our legislative agenda this morning? Okay, seeing no further public comment, then I'll close public comment. Is there any further discussion by the board, Commissioner Pendergrass?
I have a question for staff, if I could. Glenn, who's our current lobbyist that will be supporting our initiatives this year in Tallahassee?
Commissioner, currently the Dean Mead firm is our state contract lobbyist.
Is it up for bid right now? Is there going through our RFQ process right now?
There was a solicitation earlier in the summer. The selection committee met. They did rank Dean Mead number one, again, out of the three submittals. We've not brought that contract forward yet for approval by the board, partly because of Hurricane Ian and the changing landscape of what we need by way of lobbying services.
Yes, well, I'm thinking out loud, if I could talk to the board, indulge the board, we're going to have a lot of federal issues working with Army Corps and all the water issues coming up in the future. So I'm not sure how much of expert they are as far as DC with the federal issues. We may look at something else there. And also a little bit more involved. I mean, I was chair the last year, and I don't think I've ever met or heard from our lobbyists one time throughout the year. I know legislator, I'm not sure who was the legislator person was that went to Tallahassee this year, but as far as contact, they need to have more involvement and contact the board, and especially the chair, throughout the year.
Certainly good comments, Commissioner, absolutely. And look forward to getting with all of you about what your liaison duties. I certainly look forward to appointing Commissioner Sandelli as our liaison to the Horizon Council because of the excellent work you've done there. But yeah, as we look at that, we'll work together to make sure there may be a case this year where all 5 of us need to go to Tallahassee and lobby.
Said it for the last 10 years. We have the best lobbyists sitting here right here, and we're not paying them. What do we probably paid them? $250,000 this year. The current firm, 150, 200.
No, sir. It's we pay $5,500 a month.
$5,500 a month. So okay, we're paying $70,000 a year. So, but we got one of the 5 greatest lobbyists right here. But you know, it's going to take time and work. We're going to have to do it, and when we have initiatives. So, thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Any further discussion on the motion that's on the floor? All right, seeing no further discussion, I'll call the question. Are there any objections? All right, show it passes unanimously with no objections. Thank you. All right, item number 4, Mr. County Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Administrative item number 4, you'll recall that the last legislative season, Senator Pasadomo was instrumental in helping us receive appropriations of almost $14 million for the expansion of the Emergency Operations Center, and we need to accept those grant funds today. We'd ask Mr. Mora to make the presentation.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Commissioners. Administrative item number 4 seeks approval to accept $13.7 million in grant funding from the Florida Division of Emergency Management to support the expansion of the Emergency Operations Center. This funding was appropriated by the legislature and the governor and will supplement funding for the project, which is currently estimated at $37.5 million. Construction is expected to begin in April of 2023 and scheduled to be completed in October of 2024.
Very good. Commissioners, any questions for our administration? I had one question before we move forward. Just what is the contingency for the facility being under construction as we go into the next hurricane season? Obviously, that's been a consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. When you schedule a project like this, you certainly don't want to do most of the work during hurricane season, which is becoming a longer and longer season for us here in Florida. So our team is going to work with the contractor to ensure that we have the least disruptive construction schedule as possible. I think the areas that we're talking about affecting are going to be an expansion to the east side of the building. So I don't believe it's going to be a disruption to the operation in the case that we activate in the future.
Very good. All right. Any further questions then? At this time, I'd like to take public comment then on item number 4, accepting the grant for the expansion of the Emergency Operations Center. Has anyone come to speak on that item? Okay, seeing none, I'll close public comment. Does anybody wish to make a motion?
Gladly will.
Motion for approval from Commissioner Ruane, second from Commissioner Pendergrass. Do we have any further discussion on that item? All right, seeing none, are there any objections? All right, seeing no objections, that motion carries unanimously. Item number 5, Mr. DeGillet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Today, we are asking you to approve a contract change order for Class 1 landfill Phase 3 construction. We'll ask Mr. Whitehead to make the presentation, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. Doug White with Lee County Solid Waste. At its very essence, what this does is accelerates the construction of the landfill from 12 months to 6 months. This construction is not an expansion. It is presently permitted airspace, which has been permitted for a long time. But because of additional waste we're taking in for 2 reasons. One, just general population growth in the county. And secondly, we have, while we're not taking any contracted debris to our landfill, is that there has been a 2.5 multiplier in the past 2 months of material going to the landfill just from contractors and other people within the county and also Hendry County.
Very good. And anybody have any questions for our administration or staff? Okay, seeing none, just one thing, Mr. Whitehead wanted to clarify, this is not the Gulf Coast landfill. We are talking about the Lee Hendry County landfill here today.
Yes, sir, our Lee Hendry landfill needs this expansion just because of population growth, but also we are taking a lot of material in, not incidental, but because of the hurricane.
Okay, very good. Anybody have any further comments?
I'm glad you clarified that because all the Gulf Coast is getting all the other attention, so it's the Hendry County one.
This is the Lee Hendry County one. Very good. All right. Thank you, Mr. Whitehead. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and call for public comment. Has anyone come to speak in public comment on the item number 5 on the administrative agenda? Okay, seeing none, I'll close public comment at this time. Do we have a motion?
A motion to approve.
Okay, Commissioner Greenwell moves approval, and the second from Commissioner Sandelli. Do we have any further discussion on this item? Okay, seeing no further discussion, are there any objections? Seeing no objections, that motion carries unanimously. All right, very good. At this time, I'd like to recognize the County Attorney's Office for our 9:30 public hearings. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. David Halverson, County Attorney's Office. I have your first public hearing this morning. This item has been duly advertised, and I'm providing the affidavit of publication to the clerk. Item number 1 is a petition to vacate the public's interest in the platted public utility easements centered along the common property lot lines between lots 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 along 8th Street Southwest and Lehigh Acres. There are no objections to the requested vacation. And this action would also authorize the granting of replacement easements to both CenturyLink and LCEC. Just any questions, staff's available.
Very good. Do we have any questions, Commissioners? Okay, seeing none, at this time, I'd like to open the floor to public comment on public hearing number 1. Has anyone come to speak on that item? Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and close public comment at this time. Does somebody wish to make a motion?
I gladly will.
Okay, motion for approval from
Second.
Commissioner Ruane and a second from Commissioner Greenwell. Any further discussion, Commissioners? Seeing none, are there any objections? Seeing no objections, that motion carries unanimously. Item number 2. Good morning.
Morning, Commissioners. Joe Adams with the County Attorney's Office. This hearing has also been properly advertised and have the affidavit for your clerk. This is going to be the first of 2 public hearings to approve a development agreement with Babcock Property Holdings for the county to accept the donation of a 3-acre site for construction of an EMS facility on the Babcock Ranch project. The second public hearing will be on December 6th. If there's any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Very good. Does anyone have any questions at this time? Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and open the floor to public comment. Has anyone come to speak in public comment today on the public hearing, item number 2 regarding the Babcock Property Holdings development agreement? All right, seeing none, I'll close public comment. Commissioners, does anybody wish to make a motion at this time?
I move the item.
Motion for approval from Commissioner Pendergrass, second from Commissioner Sandelli. Do we have any further discussion on that item? All right, seeing none, are there any objections? Seeing no objections, that motion carries unanimously. At this time, I'd like to recognize our county manager for the walk-on item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Sellier, please present the item.
Yes, Commissioners, this item asks you to approve a lease amendment and an emergency resolution that would authorize Safe Harbor Marinas and its subsidiary to operate a temporary vessel triage center on the parcel at Waterway Estates that's owned by the county. This would allow for, of course, Hurricane Ian recovery of derelict vessels. The idea is that the temporary use could extend no later than May of 2024. At the same time as this operation is underway, Safe Harbor will be pursuing a development order and permits to develop the site into a marina.
Excellent. Any questions, Commissioners, on this item? Okay, seeing none, at this time I'll call for public comment. Has anyone come to speak in public comment on the Waterway Estates item today? Okay, seeing none, I'll close public comment. Commissioners, does anyone wish to make a motion?
I'd love to make a motion.
Motion for approval from Commissioner Ruane.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Greenwell. Any further discussion on this item? Okay, seeing no further discussion, are there any objections? Seeing no objections, that motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, at this time, we'll move to Commissioner items. Commissioner Greenwell, do you have any items to present?
This time, Chairman.
Okay. Commissioner Pendergrass, any items?
No items. I was going to ask, is the county manager going to talk about debris and housing?
Yeah, we'll do that under county manager items.
Okay. No items.
No items today then? Do you have any items, Commissioner Sandelli? Any items?
I do, just a brief item. I had sent an email yesterday that it was my suggestion and recommendation that we have a workshop on the task force. The branches, the facilitating company, I threw that out there as a December 6th workshop. I did talk with the county manager, but I just want to bring it to y'all's attention. Anybody have a problem with a workshop to get this going?
I'm fine with having a workshop, everybody, okay?
I have a schedule. I'm already committed that day, so I will not be attending. So but you can have it and you have my support.
Okay, very good. All right, Mr. County Manager, is that all you need in the way of direction then to schedule that workshop?
Yes, sir. And when we get to the county manager items, we'll be giving you a briefing, and I think it'll become apparent just how necessary that workshop is.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, at this time, does anyone have any committee appointments? Commissioner Greenwell, do you have any this morning?
I do not.
Commissioner Pendergrass?
No.
I have none this morning. Commissioner Sandelli?
I have 3. Henry Zuba for the local planning agency, Stan Satter, local planning agency, and Kathleen Truax, the Palmetto Point Special Improvement District.
Very good. We have a motion from Commissioner Sandelli and a second from Commissioner Ruane. Do we have any further discussion on this? Are there any objections? Seeing none, that motion carries unanimously. Commissioner Ruane, any appointments?
I have no appointments, sir. Thank you.
Okay, very good. At this time, I'd like to recognize our county manager for county manager items.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a couple of items to discuss with you today, and let's start with the easy one first, which is broadband opportunity funding letter. Would ask Ms. Brady to make that presentation.
Good morning, Commissioners. What we are asking today is for a letter from the board to support a request from Comcast for a broadband project here in Lee County. The Florida Office of Broadband is seeking applications for their Broadband Opportunity Program, otherwise known as a BOCC grant. This is a grant that service providers apply for and are required to match 50% of funds from the state's grant. These projects are to build new infrastructure in unserved areas. This letter is to support Comcast application for a project in Northeast Lee County, and they are currently offering the $5 million match for a total of $10 million towards the project. So a copy of the letter has been attached to the recap, and again, this is to ask for the current chair's signature on behalf of the board.
Very good. Commissioners, any questions on the item as presented? I had one question. So is Lee County required to make any financial contribution at all?
No, sir, not for this.
No, okay, very good. And Mr. County Manager, do you need a motion or consensus to sign this? Motion, please. A motion, our county attorney's saying we need a motion. So would somebody wish to make the motion?
Gladly move the item.
Okay, the motion is from Commissioner Ruane. Second from Commissioner Sandelli. Do we have any further discussion on that item then? All right, seeing none, are there any objections? Seeing no objections, that motion carries unanimously. I'll be glad to sign that for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next on our agenda for discussion is debris and housing updates, and we'd like to start with just an update on debris removal and ask Mr. Whitehead to make that presentation.
Good morning, Commissioners. As an update on debris removal, as of yesterday, we've collected over 3 million cubic yards of debris from the streets. That's in unincorporated Lee County only. Of that material, 32% is construction and demolition material that's been collected. Countywide, as of Sunday, 6.2 million cubic yards has been collected by all municipal entities within the county, and of that material, approximately 35% is construction and demolition material. We continue to have, for the county, between 130 and 140 trucks on the street. Our rate right now, we think, will be in about the 75,000 to 95,000 cubic yards a day for the next several weeks.
Very good. Any questions for our staff on the debris removal? Commissioner Ruane?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. So I know the governor made an initiative about private property, and I just don't have real clarity on exactly how do we facilitate that, how do we assist. Certainly in my district, and many streets are private, so just trying to get some clarity. That just hasn't been as clear as I'd like it to be.
Yes, Commissioner, it's confusing to us also at this time, but we're going under the understanding that if there's any material in the right-of-way at this time, we are collecting material in the right-of-way. Material that's not on the right-of-way is interior to the property, is part of the state mission that is going on across the county.
Yeah, Doug, I think I would just add, Commissioner, well, for all of you, the iandebriscleanup.com website that the state has set up, along with the telephone hotline, is really the way for private property owners to register. The state will send out its contractors. They'll do an evaluation. If they deem the parcel to have qualifying debris, they will then send the state contractor in to collect that debris.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
If I may also add, I'm going to ask Mr. Salyer to make an explanation of another piece of this debris puzzle. I've heard on the news in the last couple of days about waterway cleanup, and I think I've even heard a statement about can't believe it's 30 days or more and we still don't have the debris out of the waterways, the back bays, the mangroves, and all of that. Mr. Salyer, will you please explain who's responsible for that and as much as we know about it at the moment?
Yes, sir, I will do my best. It is a smorgasbord of agencies that are working on waterway cleanup, starting with titled property, so vessels, automobiles, containers, all of that is being run as a state mission. This Division of Emergency Management is using multiple contracts under DEP and other agencies to take care of those kinds of property. Non-titled property, meaning construction and demolition debris, vegetated debris, et cetera, is being collected. First and foremost, the county has a contractor that we have pre-positioned, just like we did with Crowder Gulf, to take care of the water courses that we typically maintain. So the county has that work underway.
And that's primarily the conveyance system.
That is primarily the conveyances. So beyond that, we have, of course, an agreement with the Water Management District that allows them to remove the same kinds of debris from different waterways. That work is underway, and I know you all get periodic updates on that effort. Then we have asked the state to run an additional mission, and they have agreed to clean up the waterways that we don't typically maintain, so going beyond the conveyances. So in the back bay type areas, the mangroves, et cetera, that also will be a state mission. They have awarded a contract to do that, and they've provided notice to proceed. So while I don't think that work has actually started yet, the notice to proceed has been issued. We are supposed to learn later today what the operations plan is for that effort.
Do you have any more detail, Ron? Sorry.
Commissioner Rain, yeah.
I'm just trying to get a little bit more detail, if you have any more. Just heard a lot of mixed conversations relative to vessels. Right. And I mean, I know Fort Myers Beach and certainly Pine Island is running into a lot of challenges with their vessels that have not been picked up. They're leaning on top of other vessels. You know, when I was at a press conference with the governor, he had indicated that they were going to address those, but it's 48 days later and they're still boats on top of boats all over the place. So just, do you know who the contract vendor is?
Well, yes, sir. Like I said, there actually are multiple vendors for the vessel mission, but the challenge there is, and I know the governor also stated that he's going to help get the shrimp fleet back in the water as well. And I did talk to an FDEM representative yesterday who is working on that right now, but they're encountering the same issues that they have with all of the vessels that you just described. And that is a very complicated state law process that requires identifying the vessel owner, contacting them, trying to get releases, trying to get subrogation of insurance. If none of that happens, there's a waiting period. Once all of that runs, then they can proceed, but it does take quite a while, and I think that's why you see what you've just described.
Yeah, I do know the governor. Thank you. I appreciate it. I do know the governor's coming tomorrow to talk to the fishing group. I know he'll be over in Mount Lachey, so it'd be interesting to find out a little bit more about that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
Commissioners, we are fully aware that the general public they'll be pretty patient with debris removal for about 30, 45 days. But after that, people really start getting angry. And I'm going to tell you, we absolutely understand that. So for all of the debris pickup and disposal that we are responsible for as Lee County government, we make the absolute commitment to you and to the public that we will continue to move as fast as we can. If people have questions about other debris that is the responsibility of others, we'll do our best to point them in the right direction. But you know, this is going to be a really protracted period for cleanup between the vessels and all of the debris, construction demolition debris, and that's in mangroves, in the Back Bay and down in Benita Springs and Pine Island, Sanibel. It's going to be a long process, and we're just asking for patience.
Very good. Any further comments on that, commissioners? Okay, thank you, Mr. County Manager. Oh, Commissioner Sandelli.
I have a question. Back to the land again. Can you give me a little clarity, because we've run into this a few times where a right-of-way agreement is necessary to access a property? Because we get gated communities, we got, you know, unincorporated, and then sometimes there are communities that are not gated but need an access agreement. Can you just give me some clarity on how that works?
Yes, Commissioner, we need a right of entry form to enter HOAs and other areas. It does get even more complicated than that, and we look at each individually. For instance, mobile home communities, in many cases, the land is owned by a commercial entity, and the mobile homes themselves are owned by a private entity. So we go each of them individually. We work with the HOA or the mobile home manager and go through them in detail.
Okay, because when we get some questions and you ask them about it and they go, well, I don't know about that, you know, and stuff like that. So we're trying to give them as much clarity as we can within the scope of the work. And thank you for all the work you guys have done to date.
Thank you, sir.
Very good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'd like to thank Mr. Whitehead and Glenn and the entire solid waste staff and others who are involved. They've just done an incredible job with debris pickup and disposal so far. So good work done. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, now comes the complicated topic, and probably our single largest challenge over the next several years, and that is housing. We're still a little bit unclear about the total number of homes destroyed, but we are beginning to receive information from FEMA as people register on the FEMA hotlines and through the disaster recovery centers, and they're falling in several categories. It's not an overstatement to say that the federal government over the next 5 years is going to provide unconscionable sums of money. And I don't know how else to say that, except it's more money than I've ever seen the federal government appropriate for disaster recovery. But the housing portion of this is going to be very complex. And we fortunately have a couple people working with us that have emerged as experts in this conversation. So I would like to ask Jeannie Sutton and Mickey Rozowski to give you a quick brief on this topic, and then this will become, no doubt, one of the primary areas of concentration for the recovery task force, and it'll require a huge coordinating effort. So, ladies.
Good morning, Commissioners. So just to provide a little bit of an update, as Roger mentioned, there is definitely an emerging and substantial need in the community related to housing. FEMA is very much underway in their efforts to address immediate housing needs. To that end, they are administering the Transitional Sheltering Assistance Program, which is hotel vouchers. We have had some challenges with getting support and participating hotels in the county. However, that is starting to improve slightly as time goes on and additional hotels come back online as they make repairs. So those individuals who have made claims with FEMA and have been approved for transitional sheltering assistance are able to seek out participating hotels and stay in those short term while they're waiting for repairs or finding their next housing option. In addition to transitional sheltering assistance, FEMA is also working through direct housing assistance, which we talked about a little bit at the last meeting, which is essentially FEMA trailers. And so that process is very much underway. However, the first one has not yet been placed in the county. They are working to identify sites that are viable and are trying to work with homeowners directly to get those placed in homeowners' property. Beyond those homeowners, there will be group sites that are identified down the road. FEMA is currently looking at upwards of 30 different potential sites, and they have to go through quite a rigorous review process on each of those sites in order to make a determination if it's going to be a viable place to place trailers. So they're working through that entire process. We do meet with them on at least a weekly basis, if not more often, to stay up to date and provide information to them as they need to move that along as quickly as possible. Beyond the assistance that's being provided from FEMA, we are also coming to you today to ask for some support to advocate to the state for an appropriation of Hurricane Housing Recovery Program funds, as well as rental recovery loan program, which allows for us to carry out and begin the long-term housing recovery process by doing projects like new housing construction, rehab of rental properties, both single-family duplex type rental properties, as well as our larger multifamily developments. So the ask that we are making of the state, the HHRP or Hurricane Housing Recovery Funding, that is something that they typically do allocate after a disaster of this size. However, we're asking for a couple of policy flexibilities in that ask. We're asking that they allocate funding from outside of the state affordable housing trust funds so that we ensure that we preserve our SHIP funding for our future allocations. We're also asking for a 3-year grant term on that funding to allow us some additional planning flexibilities. 3 years gives us some time to get recurring funding and plan for future projects to ensure that our long-term recovery is holistic and helps to rebuild our community in the way that we want to see it.
Very good. Mr. County Manager, so with that ask, are you asking for a motion to pass those items today, or will you be bringing that?
We would, no, sir, there's no need to pass those items today. But we would ask you to approve the letter of support that Jeannie just described to go to the state. And, I apologize that we're not able to brief you in advance of today, but this is all at the staff level unfolding so fast. And there's this need for a real sense of urgency on our part to keep moving forward at a pretty quick pace. So the staff work that's occurring now is very preliminary in nature, and it's more about information gathering and setting up the conversation that we will have, that you will have as a board and as a task force to help coordinate a countywide effort. Each of the cities will have the same opportunity as we have for some of the programs that Jeannie's just described. So today we'll ask you to approve that letter of support that we can send to state legislatures. Thank you. And Mickey, do you have anything else to add this morning?
Jeannie covered it all. I'm lucky to have a great partner here.
Very good. So just so I'm clear, the letter will be addressed to the state legislative delegation, and will it also go to the executive branch of the governor's office as well then?
Yes, sir. It goes to the governor and his chief of staff.
Very good. Is this something we need to add to our legislative agenda then at this point that we just passed earlier today?
Yes, that is an item that is also included. We're just kind of making an extra push for this.
Oh, excellent. So it's an item already included in covered in the support language we had in the legislative agenda. Great.
Yes, thank you. And when Commissioner Wayne, suggested the workshop on the 6th, this is one of the really, really big topics that we're going to have to, get our arms around. And I'm glad that I didn't have to make this presentation this morning after listening to Jeannie and Mickey yesterday lay the whole thing out. It's a little mind-boggling, the amount of money that's available in the programs that will have to be administered at the local level, not just by Lee County, but by the cities as well. So it will be probably the most important piece of recovery that we work through.
Very good. Any questions?
I just have one question. I know SHIP funds seemed to bounce around a little bit in the past and seems to stabilize. So what we're looking for, that's obviously going to be an important part. Do we see that as a stabilized piece to build upon, or do we have to concern ourselves with it being bifurcated in any way?
So part of the advocacy we're asking for is for the allotment of this money to come outside of those dedicated SHIP funds. Those SHIP funds have a little bit more protection than they have in the past, which gave us a greater allocation this year and should give us greater allocations in the future years for the span of activities those can be used for. So it's really important that we make this ask to be outside of those designated funds.
Perfect, thank you.
Very good. Any further questions, commissioners?
I'll gladly move the item.
Okay, we have a motion to sign the letter from Commissioner Ruane and a second from Commissioner Sandelli. Do we have any further questions or discussion on that? Does anybody wish to, since we're going to vote on a motion and signing a letter then in support of this, would anybody wish to speak in public comment on this item then that we just discussed related to housing? Okay, seeing none, I'll close public comment. Commissioners, any further discussion before I call the question? Okay, seeing none, are there any objections? Seeing no objections, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Duchesne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to thank Jeannie and Mickey for all of the hard work that's ahead of them.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very good. Any further county manager items for today?
That's good for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. County Attorney, any items today?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. And I would ask to defer to Assistant County Manager Mark Moore. I believe this is the portion where we're going to have an update with regard to the application of a factor to the 50% rule. As the board is aware, you discussed this at your last meeting, and we had commended to you that we would follow up with the appropriate state and federal agencies. We have done so. The purpose of this morning's report is to update you as to the status, and at the end of the presentation, our recommendation will be to take no further action regarding this matter.
Thank you, Mr. County Attorney. Mr. Moore, you're recognized.
Thank you, sir. Good morning again, Commissioners. As Richard mentioned, during the last special board meeting on Tuesday, staff intended to present a resolution that would apply a 15% multiplier to the Lee County Property Appraiser's valuation of buildings to be used as part of FEMA's 50% rule. No action was taken during that meeting due to the last-minute guidance that staff received from both FDEM and FEMA. As Richard mentioned, subsequently, staff from the Community Development Office, the County Attorney's Office, County Administration, and the Property Appraiser's Office met with FDEM and FEMA to better understand their guidance. And as an outcome, we learned that the board does not have authority to apply a multiplier to the value calculated by the Property Appraiser's Office, and neither FDEM nor FEMA would endorse such an action. Both FDEM and FEMA are of the opinion the value must be set and only set by the property appraiser. When questioned about municipalities within Lee County having property value multipliers codified in their ordinances, FDEM shared they would be directing them to be removed immediately. Based on this direction, no action is required by the board at this time, as the county currently does not have such a multiplier in choice. I will remind you, last week we did approve amendment to our flood regulations that moved the look-back duration from 5 years to permit, which should be a great aid to our residents as they rebuild. Just want to add just a little bit of data. We have, in the Community Development Office, received a little over 8,000 Ian-related permits to date. Of those, 14 have been permits that have exceeded the 50% threshold. I want to give you guys a sense of the magnitude of the 50% rule as it applies so far.
Okay, very good. Any further questions on this for Mr. Mora?
I have a question. So can we get a little better maybe explanation on, for the public, on exactly, at this point, many of them should probably go out and seek appraisals on their property if they feel like they're kind of borderline pieces of property. Would you clarify that a little bit?
We would agree that if the value that the property appraiser has calculated and found on LIPA does not fit, we would suggest that they go out and get a private appraisal done on their property.
Very good. Any further questions on that? Mr. Mora, just for clarification purposes then, so, you know, the county commission, obviously when we asked this, we were told we're not allowed to add that multiplier. You mentioned many of the municipalities have already added a multiplier. What is going to happen now with that?
So most of those municipalities that do have a multiplier had those pre-storm. They were in their code already. FDEM did share during our meeting that they will be contacting those municipalities and requesting that they remove the multiplier.
So everybody then in Lee County should, by the time that action's taken, be on the same playing field then?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. And just to recap those numbers, you said it was 8,000 permits?
Yeah, we have 8,040 as of yesterday were Ian-related permits that were submitted to the community development, and of those, we've been tracking 14 are permits that have exceeded the 50% threshold.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Mora. Mr. County Manager, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, it's worth mentioning, as Mr. Moore just described, as did the county attorney, that the values to be used in calculating the 50% threshold will come from the property appraiser's office, and we have recommended that when people find themselves in that position, that they get a private appraisal. And that is not to say that we think that the property appraiser's values are incorrect. The difference is that property appraiser uses a mass appraisal system, which is distinctly different from a private appraisal of value. And so that the private appraisal may find the property to be have a higher value and help the homeowner.
Excellent, very good. All right, Commissioners, at this time, I'd like to go ahead and call Richard Durling up for public comment. I believe, oh, sure, Mr. County Attorney, real quick, I apologize.
Thank you. Just real briefly, Commissioners, throughout this process, the participation of our property appraiser, Mr. Caldwell, and his staff has been integral in getting these items resolved. Mr. Caldwell issued you a letter, I believe you received it yesterday. We have reviewed that letter. We fully concur in his legal determinations, and we support the proposition that this Board of County Commissioners as a legislative body is without the authority to adopt a multiplier as we had previously contemplated, and that all decisions regarding assessed value / market value come from the property appraiser under the Florida Constitution and Florida law. Mr. Caldwell is present, and I'm sure if called upon, he would be happy to address you as well. Just want to place that on the record that our office concurs with his determinations as codified in his recent writing to you. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. County Attorney. At this time, I would like to open the floor to a member who is requested public comment. Anybody else who wishes to speak on this 50% rule? Mr. Durling, please come forward. Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. For the record, I'm Richard Durling. I'm here this morning on behalf of the building industry and the citizens of Lee County to ask you to consider a resolution to add an additional percentage to the assessed value of property to the benefit of the property owner for the 50% rule. We disagree with the opinion that you, the County Commission, does not have the authority to add the additional percentage. You are the ultimate authority here in Lee County, and the property appraiser serves the County Commission. Florida State Statute, Chapter 125, County Government, Part 1, Powers and Duties, 125.01, Prin T, states, the governing body shall have the power to adopt ordinances and resolutions necessary for the exercise of its powers, and Prin W, perform any other acts not inconsistent with law, which acts are in common interest of the people of the county, and exercise all powers and privileges not specifically prohibited by law. We find no language that states the property appraiser is the sole person to assess property values. We have, during previous meetings, presented factual information on why we believe the additional percentage should be added to the assessed value. That being 38% increase in the cost of construction over the last 2 years. We now ask you to consider one additional issue. That is the Save Our Homes program. That program was created with good intentions, but has unintended consequences. That being the reduced value of homestead properties, which we would argue are the vast majority of the people affected by the hurricane and the 50% rule. These properties have artificially lower values. Numerous counties and cities have adopted ordinances that add additional percentages, and they have been approved previously by FEMA. For FEMA to now come back and say that they're going to have them address those and remove those, are they going to do it to the whole state of Florida and then remove us from the program? Additionally, the talk of having private appraisers come in and provide those services, we've already discussed that in the past, that there are presently not enough private appraisers to do the work. It's going to be at a great expense to the homeowners, and I've even talked to some that are refusing to do it. They don't want to get involved in this discussion for numerous reasons. So we'd please ask you to reconsider your decision and move forward with an ordinance or a resolution that would give these homeowners the opportunity to stay in their homes. You addressed the previous speaker, one of the previous speakers, about housing. This is a huge housing issue for Lee County. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Durling. Any further speakers on this topic? Okay, seeing no further speakers, then I'll close public comment. Commissioners, you've heard the information by both our county attorney and our administration. At this time, they've recommended we take no action. Does anybody wish to have any further discussion on this?
I had a question for, I don't know if it's for
Commissioner Pendergrass?
the county attorney or Roger's staff, but, you know, we got hit with this at 9 o'clock the last week, before the last meeting. We're always surprised, but what's going to happen, like we heard one of the speakers say, across the state where jurisdictions have already made some initiatives to add an increased percentage to the valuation. So what happens to those cities and counties that took that on?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Mr. County Attorney?
We had the pleasure of engaging in a approximately 75-minute telephone conversation with representatives of both the Department of Emergency Management and FEMA, up to and including a representative sitting in Washington, D.C. We raised that particular question numerous times during the course of that conversation, your staff pointing out to both FDEM and FEMA that it was patently unfair and possibly an equal protection issue should the Lee County Board of County Commissioners be held to a standard that other jurisdictions were not going to be held to throughout the state of Florida and also within Lee County. At approximately the 59th minute of that conversation, we finally received confirmation from the state that the position that they imposed upon Lee County would be their position imposed upon all jurisdictions within the state of Florida, and that FDEM would be following up with any and all jurisdictions that have adopted a multiplier with the same consultation that they provided to Lee County, and that is to remove that multiplier from both ordinance, resolution, and practice, as there is no foundation for it within Florida law. That, as we've previously stated, the terms and conditions to establish market value lie solely within the discretion of your elected property appraiser, who, respectfully, I would point out that under the Florida Constitution is a separate constitutional officer from the Board of County Commissioners, and unlike department heads that serve the Board of County Commissioners, he is a separately elected constitutional official.
So my concern is if this is one storm, how long would they practice that before the storm hit? Because what concerned me is at the last minute, it feels like they're changing the rules and now imposing this on the local residents just because the storm actually came and hit us on September 28th. So now we're paying the price of the changes. How long has it been on in the past few years? The state and areas, jurisdictions were changing the percentages before this? Was it going on for years?
It's my understanding that throughout the state in various examples, yes, it has been a practice for a number of years. Again, during the course of our telephone conversation, we pointed out that there was at least one known jurisdiction within Lee County itself that had a multiplier. And DEM's response to us was that they were already in contact with that jurisdiction to have them remove the multiplier, and that discussion was already underway.
But what I'm saying, they didn't do that until the storm hit. So it's kind of, it's kind of like you want to trust government when something like this happens. What do you do when they're going to change the rules based upon the storm and when it hits? And that's my concern with how that happened. If it was already in place a year ago, I can understand it. And I'd rather have Matt's office do the work since he's the appraiser. But to turn around, we're trying to do something to help our residents here. And now you're going to tell us to change the rules now because the storm hits. It's very unfortunate the way it worked out.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Mr.
Commissioner, I fully understand your position. My only response would be that many of the factors that we've discussed here as attempted justifications for a multiplier, in theory, have already gone into the market value determination made by the property appraiser. And hopefully you derive some comfort from that.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioners, any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, does that conclude your county attorney items?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. At this time, we will move to public presentation of matters by citizens. This is your opportunity to comment on anything that was not on today's agenda. I do have a couple cards from Roger Lamont. Roger Lamont, there you go. And then after him, I'll have Eric Majors.
Thank you, Honorable County Commissioners. I appreciate your time today. Our daughter and her family purchased a home and moved to Fort Myers Beach just over a year ago, originally moving from California and then up to Washington State and then to Florida because they wanted their 8 and 10-year-old daughters in school. And they fell in love with Fort Myers Beach and Fort Myers Beach Elementary, so they bought a nice home there. Fortunately, their home survived Ian, and they're back on the island. At that time, my wife and I also moved to Fort Myers because we wanted to be near family, so we moved from Nevada to here. My request is that the county use the Department of Economic Development to ensure that the town of Fort Myers Beach is rebuilt as a complete town that people can call their permanent home. Although small, Fort Myers Beach Elementary has served the island residents well over the years. Getting on and off the island can be a real challenge in season, and that happens to be the same season as when school is in season. And having an elementary school on the island that serves the full-time residents is very important. The island does have its own library, and the school, as you know, probably is right behind it, and it's still there, kind of. But if you have a library, it kind of goes hand in hand that you should have an elementary school. Again, my request is that the county encourage the superintendent of Lee County Schools, who I know has the utmost recommendation, and along with the Lee County School Board, to invest in the future of Fort Myers Beach and its full-time residents, and rebuild Fort Myers Beach Elementary. I love Fort Myers Beach. My wife and I go there to visit our daughter, of course, and to help them clean up their yard. But it's a tourist area. It was a highly rental place. I would just like to see it rebuilt as it was, and I know many officials have said that that's what the goal is, and I hope that with your commissioner's help, that can be achieved. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Eric Majors.
Hi, my name is Eric Majors. I'm with Verado Roofing. I'm a Florida licensed, registered roofing contractor. I'm registered in Escambia County, and my qualifications for that are the same as if I were to be registered as a certified contractor with the state. And that's what I wanted to speak with you guys about today, because I've worked in several storms, and I have a speciality of working with commercial buildings that not a lot of state registered contractors or contractors in the state have the ability to do. So I've worked Hurricane Michael, I worked in Hurricane Sandy. And what I'm experiencing here is when we came to, there's a lot of good contractors, licensing system works, it's a way to hold people accountable. And we have a situation here which we're running into that I want to speak to you about, that in addition to the insurance lobby that has really done an amazing work here at getting the citizens really scared of contractors, and even law enforcement just scared of contractors and people being ripped off. My experience is that most contractors, because they have a license and are held to certain standards, are not the ones running around ripping people off. And what ends up happening, though, is that there tends to be a shortage of contractors when these kind of storms hit. This is what happened in a big way with Michael. And a lot of contractors went in to help, and unfortunately in those days there were some other bureaucratic reasons why they were getting a lot of resistance, and a lot of them just packed up and left. And as a result of that, there are many areas in Panama City that to this day are still not rebuilt because there was just nobody to do the work, literally. Escambia County, where Sandy was different, they handled it much better, really welcomed guys in and still held everybody accountable that needed to be held accountable. So what ends up happening is that in those storm areas where there's not licensed contractors and someone's got a leak in their roof and it persists for 2 or 3 years, they're just going to hire anybody to fix it. It's going to be unlicensed, unpermitted work that you hear all the horror stories about, and and it may not be good quality work. Okay, so The issue that I came here to discuss with you guys, you have a unique situation in Lee County and some of your municipalities where I understand that for whatever reason, Florida passed a law, HB 735, that compelled you all to get rid of your contractor licensing in the county. And my appeal to you is that I've never had a situation happen where I've gone into a county and was unable to perform work because I couldn't reciprocate my license into that county. I'm even reciprocated into Miami-Dade, which is the toughest county in the state. And my qualifications at my local county where I registered, I had to take a tougher test than you do at the state level. So normally you just send your test scores over and they recognize one county's licensing at another. So I'm witnessing contractors leaving because of this right now. The only reason that they're allowed to work right now is the State Emergency Order 2022-03, which a lot of the municipalities never even heard of. And so they're allowed to work. I'm begging you guys, they're going over to other counties, call your county to work in Naples.
You could wrap up your
Oh,
comments.
yeah. I'm just pleading with you guys to maybe pass a resolution to allow registered contractors to get reciprocity so they can work here, or at least call the governor's office and ask him to extend the emergency order to allow that, because people aren't going to be able to get the roofs done.
Thank you, Mr. Majors. I appreciate your comments this morning. Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak in public comment? Yes, ma'am. Please come forward. Yep, you can present and then just hand it to the clerk afterwards. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Deborah Swisher Hicks. I'm a Pine Island resident. I just wanted to state that although I am very patient regarding the FEMA pickup, I understand that there is going to be a process, and it's going to be a lengthy process, especially with the amount of damage that has occurred. My problem that I'm bringing forward is that during the cleanup, and I apologize if this was not the appropriate time to discuss it, that I have seen lot owners purposely bring down trees and push forward for FEMA for the trucks to pick up, which has delayed the other areas that have been affected by legitimate storm damage. So I want to bring that to the board's attention, that this is occurring, and how is this going to be put back into the fund if I am paying for it as a resident, but this lot owner that had no damage just cleared their lot and it's taken time and wait and travel and so on. How the board may address that.
Very good. Mr. County Manager, would you, and does that conclude your comments? We typically don't do a Q&A, but I wanted to give you a chance to make sure you get all your comments on the record, and then I'll ask the County Manager to address it once you've sat down.
Yeah, I thank you for that, and the reason for the possible and appropriate time is I have no internet service other than my phone, and it's very shaky right now.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you very much for coming this morning. And Mr. County Manager, would you like to address that item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask Mr. Whitehead to talk with the lady from who just addressed the board to see if we can't find a way to help out.
Okay, so did you hear that, ma'am? We'll have a staff person meet with you after the meeting to further understand more about your issue, if that's okay? Okay, very good. All right. Mr. County Manager, Commissioners, does anybody wish to bring up anything in response to the matters of public presentation by citizens?
If I may,
Commissioner
Chairman,
Greenwell, yes.
Mark, would it be possible to meet with the contractor afterwards to get a little information of what may be going on there?
Absolutely, Commissioner. Just for your own knowledge, we are recognizing out-of-county licenses because of the emergency. The governor did issue some type of flexibility there, so we are currently allowing folks who are coming from other counties to actually work here.
All right, thank you.
I just want to address the one issue we heard about the school from Mars Beach. I don't know if Commissioner Sandeli's been involved. We had some emails. I've responded to some of the parents about that the Lee County Commission has no authority or oversight or involvement with the school district. So continue to contact their school board, the elected board that oversees the schools, and the superintendent. So wish you luck on that. Thank you.
And just to kind of close that one, I know Commissioner Sandeli, being the district commissioner on Fort Myers Beach, has a real passion for helping everyone on Fort Myers Beach. We're going to name him the Horizon Council liaison, which is our Economic Development Advisory Board. And so Commissioner Sandeli will work hand in hand with our Economic Development Office. And I know with him being the district commissioner for Fort Myers Beach, that will be top on his mind.
You know, we received a number of calls and questions about it. Everything from what the school population was, what it could be, what its needs are going to be, interim facilities, long-term facilities and stuff. There's a lot of questions out there right now, but obviously school is an important part of the community down there. We're working towards that.
Very good. At this time, I'd like to ask, is there any further business before us? All right, seeing no further business before us, we're adjourned.